What's going on, gamers? It's your boy Diggs Gaming. Welcome back to All Functions Gaming News. And guess what? I have no Activision updates this week. Yeah, they actually stayed out of the news for an entire week. Hooray! But I do have to talk about Jim Ryan and the email that he had sent to PlayStation employees. Now, for those of you that don't know, Jim Ryan had basically sent out this email that he talked about how they have to respect people and their ideas and opinions because there's so many people in the video game industry and those that play video games. And that would have been fine. Some people would have been upset, but that would have been fine. But then he goes on to talk about stuff like his cats and upcoming events and talk about how he's thinking about getting a dog because they're always loyal. And yeah, it kind of rubbed people the wrong way because, again, it probably wouldn't have gotten as much attention if he had just ended it with him just talking about respecting other people and their opinions and beliefs. But for him to do that, that's not borderline passive aggressive. I think that is passive aggressive, not just a little bit. Really, I got to call him out on this. I don't know if he was trying to make it seem like he was being passive aggressive. He might not have been, but yeah, it's just not a good look for him right now. And really, it's not a good look for PlayStation when you have the head of PlayStation sending out an email like that. I don't know. That's kind of something Activision does, and you don't want to be considered like Activision right now. And I'm just hoping that PlayStation and Jim Ryan learn from this and this never happens again, because if they start to become Activision, they're going to lose a lot of fans. It's not going to be pretty. And again, I just got to call them out for this. This is just something where it just should not happen. That I don't know what Jim Ryan was thinking with that. I just don't know what he was thinking. Probably wasn't thinking. And then you have the original God of War director calling out Phil Spencer of Xbox. Now, to those of you that did not hear about this, basically he said Phil Spencer sucks as head of Xbox. Now, to be fair, he did say that Phil Spencer, he's a guy that has great ideas. He's a guy that's a great game designer, but he's not great at producing games. And the guy I'm talking about, his name is David Jaffe. I hope I'm saying that right. But again, he was the director of the original God of War game. And yeah, it's not a good look for him to be calling out Phil Spencer. Now, yes, Phil Spencer and Xbox have had their problems recently with the whole thing with the Initiative and the Perfect Dark reboot, where Crystal Dynamics had to take over, not looking good from Undead Labs, with some controversy headed their way and a few other things I'm going to talk about later. But for him to call him out on that, I think that was a little out of line. Okay, let's move on to the earnings report from Sony. So Sony released their earnings report from the previous quarter and the previous fiscal year. So Sony has said that up to date, this is as of March 31st, 2022. So about a month and a half has passed since then. But up until that point, they had shipped 119.3 million PS5s and 117.2 PS4s. Now, with PlayStation 5, they say shipped, but you can basically say the same thing. Shipped, sold, whatever. The PS5 is sold over 19 million units. That is down from the PlayStation 4 from the time period that we are at. But we have had the shortages. We've had the chip shortages that have affected PlayStation a whole lot. And they're actually expecting to ship 18 million PS5s in the next fiscal year. So from April 2022 to March 2023, they're expecting to ship 18 million. And we could see the stock situation improve. Sony had talked about that. And if that happens, that'll be big, not just for Sony, but for gamers in general that want to get their hands on a PlayStation 5. We still have gamers that even a year and a half into the next gen cycle, they still can't get their hands on a PlayStation 5. And that's just something that's not good. It's not good. And hopefully we will start to see that. We will start to see more PS5s get out there in the hands of people that want them, not just scalpers. Also, for the quarter, they sold 14.5 million first party games. So 14.5 million units of first party games sold for the previous quarter. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. And Sony has also said that they are going to be investing $300 million into first party games, releasing on multiple platforms. Now, basically, what that means, they're going to start releasing their games more often on PC, which is something that we kind of expect because from what we're seeing, they're doing great on PC, especially the latest game they released on PC, I believe it was God of War, because they had somebody that knew what they were doing. And with the whole buyout, when some of the recent buyouts, they did that so that they could get their games released on PC and have them working properly. So I'm not shocked by this. I'm not shocked by it one bit. Now, one disappointing thing that we did see was the fact that the PlayStation Plus users went down to 47.4 million. It was a previous high of, I think, over 48 million. Now it's back down to 47.4. Yeah. And I don't know why that happened. Probably because of multiple factors going into this, but hopefully we do see a rise with the PlayStation Plus new look coming out very soon. And I mean, very soon. We're less than 2 weeks away from that. Remember, it's being released first in Asian markets and coming to Japan, then North America, and then Europe. So in less than 2 weeks, that new look launches in Asia, excluding Japan, which could bring people back to PlayStation Plus. We know people have been trying to stack memberships so that they have multiple years with this. And Sony's been has since blocked it. And another thing that was announced, that the Sony Bungie deal that's expected to be completed in the third quarter of 2022. So the third quarter of the fiscal year. So the fiscal year starts in April. So the third quarter is October to December. So from October to December, that's when we can expect the Sony Bungie deal to be done, even with the FTC investigation into it. And Sir Meliodas and I tried to tell you guys, it's going to be okay. The deal's probably still going to go through. They just have to do their due diligence on this and shouldn't be an issue. And the last thing I want to talk about with Sony is their CFO, Hiroki Totoki. I hope I said that right. Said that Sony first-party games, if they are put on a subscription service with day-and-day releases, might deteriorate because they're not going to make as much money as they would need to if they just release them the way that they have been. This is something that Sony has been saying over and over and over again. Jim Ryan has said this multiple times. Sean Lennon has said this. And while that's the official reason that Sony gives them, really the reason is because Sony just cannot afford to do this financially. They just cannot. And the reason is why Sony and Nintendo can't afford to do this, but Microsoft can, is because Sony and Nintendo, their main divisions are their video game divisions. That's the whole thing. That's what makes them their money. Their video game divisions is what makes them money. With Microsoft, they can get away with it because their video game division is not their main moneymaker. They were a big tech company before they went into the video game market. And that's why Microsoft can afford to do this, and Sony and Nintendo cannot. And this is something that gamers still get confused by. Sony and Nintendo cannot afford to do something like this because the reason that those two companies got big was because of their work in the video game market. While Microsoft went into the video game market to see if they could make any noise in it. And when they found out that they could, they decided to stay in the video game market. And because of the fact that the video game market isn't their main breadwinner, they can afford to take some losses in basically their video game division if they feel like they could get more players. And that's what's been happening. Sony and Nintendo just cannot afford to do that because they still have to make money. They still have to pay their employees. They still need to make money to make future games. That's the whole thing. I get it. I really do. But it's just not something that Sony can afford. However, Sony has said that if they feel like it could be profitable down the line, they might do it. But as of right now, it's just not going to happen. Okay, moving from Sony to Nintendo, Nintendo has announced some sales numbers as well. And they announced that the Switch has sold 107.65 million units. Now, what's interesting about that number is it's actually more than Wii U software sales, not hardware, software, actual games. Okay, that's a little funny. That's it, it's funny, but it's also sad and it's very interesting. It just goes to show you how big the Switch has been. And really, with the Wii U, that was such a disappointment for Nintendo. And now the Switch has really showed people just what Nintendo has been all about. Every time you feel like Nintendo takes a step back, they come back and they take two steps forward again. And Nintendo has come out and said that they are a little concerned about their next console after the Switch. And I completely understand that 100% because when you have a console that's been as big as the Switch, it is really hard to top that. Um, I can only think of a couple of cases where you have a high selling console and then the next one either meets that or exceeds expectations. That's the SNES, a follow up to the NES, and the PlayStation 2, the follow up to the original PlayStation. Because think about a successful console afterwards. With the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One, Microsoft made some poor decisions. It was the same thing with Sony from the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3. Both of those companies were behind in sales. With Nintendo, from the SNES to the Nintendo 64, the Nintendo 64 was a good console. Don't get me wrong, but Nintendo also made some mistakes with the Nintendo 64 and the original PlayStation that come out, and that basically took some fans of theirs and made them into PlayStation fans. And it's not just those company we saw with the Sega Genesis and the console after that, the Atari 2600 to the Atari 5200. It is very hard to top a high selling console. But if anybody can do it, Nintendo can do it. And I think if they can take what they have learned from over the years and not make the same mistakes that they have made before and realize what they need to do to make the next console as successful as the Switch, well, it's going to be tough, but maybe not as successful, but successful nonetheless, then they should be okay. But yeah, it's going to be very hard to top the Switch. It really will be. And I completely understand why Nintendo would be a little scared about their next console. Next up, the Unreal Engine 5 came out, and people have been trying to take advantage of that. And one person really took advantage of it because they released or they created this unbelievable sequence that just blew people's minds for how realistic it was. So for those of you that did not see it, basically it was a first person view of a train station that was dark, that I think it was like only a flashlight that could allow you to see, but it just looked absolutely amazing. It looked so realistic, and people could not believe that it came from the Unreal 5 engine. That's just unbelievable. We knew the Unreal Engine 5 was going to show us more of what we could do. We knew it was going to change the video game industry, but to have graphics like that, now keep in mind, we're probably not going to see something like that in a full game for a while, but the fact that the Unreal Engine 5 can do that, that's just unbelievable. I mean, that it's just unbelievable just where we are right now in terms of video game engines. And again, it's something that we're not going to see for a while in a full video game, but to see a minute and a half video, a video game engine that can do stuff like that, it's crazy. And I was speechless when I saw it. I was just speechless because when I saw that was the Unreal 5 engine, I mean, my jaw was on the floor, and I'm at a loss for words right now. It was just unbelievable how well that looked. Go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. It was all over Twitter, and just do a search for it in Google. You're going to find it right away. Next up, we got some news from Gotham Knights. Now, we got a gameplay demo, which I will talk about later, but in the meantime, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions have been canceled. This is a full next-gen game, and we're going to start to see that now. We're going to start to see only current-gen titles. I said next-gen, I meant current-gen. Sorry about that. But yeah, last-gen games are going to be going away soon. Probably God of War Ragnarok is the last one we're going to get. Probably that's going to be the last one. Also, there's going to be no microtransactions and no forced online play, which is good news. The only problem is the gameplay demo did not look good. There were a lot of things people did not like. One, it just did not look like a next-gen game or a current-gen game. People were saying that Arkham Knight looked better than it, and I can't disagree with them on that. Really, this is not what you would expect from a game that's releasing on the Xbox Series XS, PlayStation 5, stuff like that. It's just not something that you would see. Another problem is I did not like the glider for Nightwing and the, I'm going to call it spirit jump for Red Hood. I did not like the design of Jason Todd. I'm not Red Hood, Jason Todd himself. I think he's a bit too wrestle man looking. I don't think that's how you would see Jason Todd, and it just doesn't look right to me. And whoever was the person doing this demo, whoever was playing the demo, I'm sorry, they did not do a good job. It looked like this was somebody that was a rookie at the game, not one of the developers of the game. So I don't know what happened there. Gameplay looked a little slow. It just did not look right. And again, this game is going to be releasing in October. So there's not a lot of time left. They have 5 months left to make it look great. And it looks like they still have a long way to go. Now, the question is, when is this demo from? Could be that it was an old demo. I don't know. Next up, EA and FIFA have officially ended their partnership, and the game is now going to be called EA Sports FC. And that's all I got to say on that. Really, I'm not a big fan of the FIFA games, but if you are, just know they're not going to be called FIFA anymore. They're going to be called EA Sports FC. And yeah, I got nothing more to say on that. Okay, we got some updates on some upcoming games. So Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, that reveal for the game is coming in June. So not too much longer to wait. If you've been waiting for them to show off anything on the next Call of Duty, that is coming up in June. Ubisoft is planning to release Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope, and Skull and Bones by March 31st, 2023. EA is planning to release a major IP and a remake in early 2023. Now, for what the major IP is, we have been hearing that it's going to be the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And hopefully that'll be revealed very soon. And it's going to have a new name, according to reports. So that'll be interesting to see when that comes out. And Capcom is planning on releasing multiple new titles by March 31st, 2023. Yeah, from the Ubisoft side, the one I'm really shocked by is Skull and Bones, because that game has been in kind of development hell for a while. And if they're able to release that game and it actually doesn't turn out to be a disaster, then that's a good look for them. But early reports are not good. And Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, I don't know how that's going to do. But Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope, the first Mario & Rabbids game, was actually pretty good from what I heard. And some people are looking forward to this. So we'll see if they're able to do something about that. And EA with a major IP and a remake, I'm interested in seeing what the remake is. And that's going to be interesting. I wonder what they're going to be working on. And Capcom, all we know is multiple new titles. We don't know what particularly they mean by that or what games they could be, but you can speculate. Also, the Dead Space remake is going to be releasing January 27th, 2023. I know that's something that Meliodas and JoJo are very happy to hear. We have an official release date for that. People are waiting for this game. They cannot wait for this game to come out. And lastly, sadly, Redfall and Starfield have been delayed to early 2023. Now, Meliodas and I were talking about this, particularly Starfield last week, and we both agreed the game is probably going to get delayed, and it has been delayed. So now everybody's waiting to see what happens with God of War Ragnarok. That is really the last domino for 2022. And while we still have some big games that are still coming out, really God of War Ragnarok is the biggest game left that we still don't know is going to be releasing this year. And it is a little disappointing that both Redfall and Starfield have been delayed, but look, a delay is not always a bad thing. In fact, delays most of the time are not a bad thing. It just means that they need more time to get this game to where it needs to be. So while it is disappointing, it's something that is needed. And hopefully it means that these games, when they come out, are at the best that they possibly can be and that they live up to expectations. It's not a bad thing. They have to make sure that Starfield is as good as they can get it to be. And Redfall, this is another one where Sir Meliodas is looking forward to Redfall. He is really looking forward to this. So it's another thing where you have to make sure that you get it to where you want it to be. All right, guys, that was the gaming news from this week. As always, I am Diggs Gaming, and we'll see you guys next time.